We put up a call to the House, and we did that in order to focus attention, because this decision that we're about to make over whether or not we're going to overrule the ruling of the Speaker is a decision being made by all of us, as was pointed out earlier by Representative O'Driscoll, and it really is an expression of what our values are, what we believe about this institution, and whether or not the institution is more important than other concerns. And I look at a moment like this, it's very easy, I imagine, from your perspective, to look at this as just another rules fight, like the many we've had this session. Just another technical debate, another series of minority floor speeches. But it's more than that. This is an opportunity to provide a sense of hope for the state of Minnesota. And I've experienced this during this session where there's been this kind of roller coaster ride, at least in my experience, this roller coaster ride where the highs are moments of hope and the lows are pits of cynicism. And if I were to prescribe different observations to those two different extremes, the peaks of hope and the pits of cynicism, the moments of hope have been moments like when we had these all-green boards. All-green boards, sometimes when that's not what was expected, right? Sometimes there's an expectation that there's going to be vigorous disagreement, as there often is on this floor. But sometimes we're able to come together. Sometimes we're able to have conversations. I overhear them in the retiring room, in the hallways, in committee rooms. Sometimes I'm privy to them. Sometimes I'm part of the conversations where it sounds like we might actually be listening to each other. We might actually be learning from one another. We might actually be making a provision better as a result of working together. And we've heard members rise on this floor and say as much, testify to the fact that they've had good, positive working relationships with members from the other side of the aisle and done good work and passed good law. In fact, we saw it today with the Veterans Bill. Those are the moments that give me hope. Moments like in public safety, in the Public Safety Committee, where we've heard a number of bills that, and Representative Frazier can attest to this, a number of bills that have definitely challenged my worldview, definitely challenged my preconceptions, challenged my lived experience. And I could have chosen to react to that with the defensiveness that comes with ignorance, right? When you haven't encountered something before, and one of the fears is having your lack of knowledge exposed, you can become defensive. I could have chosen that, but instead, I've chosen to entertain the possibility there might be things that I don't know. There might be experiences that are instructive that I could benefit from entertaining. And that as a result of that, and my purpose in doing that, it's not political. My purpose in doing that is that I actually, strangely enough, care about making this state a better place to live. And I take the responsibility of truly representing people, and not just people in my district, but representing not just the current living people of the state of Minnesota. This is an exercise of sustainability. It's a word we like to use quite a bit, sustainable. And implicit in that is this kind of relay race that we're engaged in, where we're taking the baton from generations that came before us, and we're passing it to generations still being raised up and yet born. And the continuity there is built upon institutions. It's built upon relationships, it's built upon traditions, it's built upon rules, and it's built upon trust. And the choice that we're about to make here on this question, the question of whether or not to overrule the Speaker, on this issue of the germaneness of the Robbins Amendment to the underlying bill, When you put it like that, it sounds wonky and technical and perhaps inconsequential. But the effect of this is a brick in the wall of trust that we can either insert and ensure that it's properly laid, or we can neglect and further weaken the structure of trust. And that structure has been weakened. It's been weakened during this session. It's been weakened in recent decades. It's been weakened in recent generations. We call it polarization. But what we really mean is an erosion of trust amongst neighbors, amongst residents and citizens of the state and the country. And people have eyes, they have minds, they can see. When they see that the referee is always calling calls that only benefit one team over the other, regardless of the merits of those calls, it's reasonable to suspect that the rules might not be being adjudicated fairly. And when that's the consistent outcome, we're consistently seeing the rules misapplied or applied in such a way that only benefits the majority at the expense of the minority. You do it once, it's, that's politics. You do it twice, you go, well, here they go again. You start seeing it as often as we've seen it this session, and I can't speak to previous sessions, but I've been here this session. You see it as often as we've seen it, as often as I've seen it as a first-term member. You start to go down in that pit of cynicism. And that's not, I don't like that place. Up here, the peak of hope, that's a place where I start to imagine how we could actually get some things done, how we could actually make some meaningful generational change in not just policy, not just ideological trajectory towards somebody's political ideal of how the state ought to be, but change in the quality of our relationships as residents of the state of Minnesota. Change in the extent to which we trust one another. And you know how you do that? You do it by what I talked about earlier. You do it by taking a look at the actual merits of the point that's before you and calling balls and strikes. Not looking at it through the lens of, does this help my party or doesn't it? Not looking at it through the lens of, will my leadership be upset with me if I go the other way? But looking at it through the lens of what is right and what is wrong, what is good for the long term, what is sustainable, what is going to set up future legislatures, future sessions, to be able to operate, function properly. What is going to give people who are out there watching and reviewing this a sense of trust that the process is working for them and not for some subset of them at the expense of the rest? And the answer to that is that you take something that, as has been stated ad nauseum, it's very, very simple. The rule in question, 3.21, we'll state it again, a motion or proposition on a subject different from that under consideration must not be admitted under guise of its being an amendment. There is no reference in this rule to a chapter of law or to a particular subsection. Those are things that you are reading into it. What it says is a subject different from that under consideration. And as was masterfully noted by Representative Olson, the subject of this bill is state and local government finance and policy. That's a pretty broad subject. It encompasses, by its very design, many, many bills. And it actually addresses a section of the underlying bill under the heading of repealer, and oh, look at that, what does it do? It repeals something. And not just anything, not something completely irrelevant to state and local government finance. It repeals something that's very specifically relevant to what the other repealed sections of law also speak to and what the underlying bill as a whole speaks to. This amendment is germane. You know that, I know that, Everybody knows that. The question is, are we going to act in accordance with what we know to be true, or are we going to act in accordance with political expediency? And that choice is going to determine which side of that roller coaster we land on tonight. Are we going to stop at the peak of hope, or are we going to land in that pit of cynicism? You may have noticed, I suffer from enough cynicism. I don't need any more. I could really use some hope. And so could the people of Minnesota. Show them that we can be grown-ups. Show them that we can admit when we're wrong. Show them that we apply the rules to ourselves, not just to the other side. Show them that you're serious. Thank you.